NeoPixel is Adafruit's brand for individually addressable RGB color pixels and strips based on the WS2812, WS2811 and SK6812 LED drivers, using a single wire control protocol.
Live from 70% vaccinated, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ask an Engineer. We're fully vaccinated and we're here at the Adafruit headquarters. It's exciting times for New York City. As you saw, we are starting to relieve some of the restrictions that have been keeping us safe for the last, 500 days, 470 days?
Yeah.
Anyways, it's just another day here in the city. Me, Lady Ada, with me, Mr. Lady Ada. On camera control, we are rocking out in the Adafruit headquarters here in downtown Manhattan, where we are doing all the manufacturing and testing and shipping of electronic goodies. But for the next hour or so, we've got Ask Engineer, our show that we do every Wednesday at 8 p.m. That's what you're watching.
That's right.
So let's kick it off.
On tonight's show, the code is BT Clock. We'll talk about why it's BT Clock later, but the code is BT Clock, 10% off in the Adafruit store. Everything in stock all the way up to probably like 10 p.m. or so.
Yeah.
So just make sure you put everything in your cart before 10, and that's how you know you'll get discounts. We'll talk about some of our Adafruit Live series of shows, including Show and Tell. We got some time travel, some Adafruit jobs board, New York City factory footage, 3D printing, INPI, new products, top secret. We're going to answer your questions. We do that over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord, where you can join all 29,000 of us. All that and more on this exciting episode of, you guessed it,
Dun, dun, dun.
Ask an Engineer.
Yay.
Okay, so let's first pay some bills, Lady Ada.
Yes.
Code is BT Clock, but as people put things in their cart, what do they get?
They get free stuff, $99 or more. You get Perma Proto half-side breadboard, great for making your projects permanent on a Perma Proto. $149 or more, you get a STEM QT board. We have a range of about 20 different ones, whether they're in stock or not. You'll get a different one each time if you make an account. Otherwise, it's random or arbitrary. $199 or more, you get UPS ground shipping in the continental United States. It's nice. It's trackable. It comes in a brown truck. Everyone loves it. UPS ground. And then at $299 or more, you get a free Circuit Playground Express, our all-in-one development board that you can run with code.org. CS Discoveries, Arduino, CircuitPython, MakeCode, Go, TinyGo, TinyLisp, what have you. It's got all the sensors and buttons and piezos and switches built in, so it's super easy to get started with making hardware without any soldering.
All right, we just did some live shows today. We had Gnome Pedro's 3D Hangouts. We just did Show and Tell.
That's right.
Make sure you watch it on YouTube or on Twitch or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Periscope or on, it's maybe all of them right now.
Yeah.
And you can check out all the folks that were on this week. The show and tells go pretty long now. We're jam-packed, so we're not going to do recaps during these shows. On Sunday we do Desk of Lady Ada. Part 1 of Desk of Lady Ada was what you're working on. What are you working on?
Okay, I'm working on porting the Seesaw library that was in ARM GCC over to Arduino IDE, which you can then use, of course, any compiler. In this case, it's going to be AVR GCC because I'm porting it to the ATtiny 817, which is like a chip that I could find in stock and does a good job. So I just showed off. I've got like NeoPixel working and analog input and digital input and output and interrupts and all that stuff. So I'm working on that peripheral library, and I'm going to redo all of the designs that I had designed with the SAMD09 because I don't think I'll be able to do the SAMD09 for about 2 years. And
okay. And then for Great Search, which we do with DigiKey and Lady Ada, where Lady Ada uses her powers of engineering for good to find things on digikey.com. What did you look for this week?
This week, I was just doing development using this dev board. I'm actually targeting the ATtiny 816, and so I showed how to get the eval board that I used, how to find eval boards for chips, and some tips, because you can't always get the eval board you want, but you'll always get the eval board you need, what to look for and how to find the eval board for the chip you're using, because chip companies have certain common tips and tricks and techniques they use to decide what chips that they pick for their eval kits. And also showed what I liked about this eval board. It might be handy when you're have multiple options available.
Okay, JP's product pick of the week was off this week, so tune in next week where we broadcast live from the product page. And you
He'll
get a
be well rested.
discount built in. And JP's off tomorrow, so you will not see JP's show tomorrow, but we do have last week's CircuitPython parsec, so we're going to play that now. Take it away, JP.
Sometimes you will receive an input or have numbers coming at you from somewhere that are in a certain range. If I want to use those numbers in a different range, you can use this simple math library called map range, which allows you to take an input minimum and maximum and then set an output minimum and maximum, and it does all the rest for you. I have this potentiometer I'm turning, and it goes from about 0 to 65,520. And you can see on the right side there, I am remapping that to a range of 0 to 127. If you check out how I'm doing this in the code, the key thing is that I'm importing this simple math import map range, and then I am using this variable called remap value, followed by, I want an integer, so I set int, and then this is the map range here, map range. And then I'm reading the sensor, and then I'm taking its minimum of 0, maximum of 65,520, and then I'm setting it to a new minimum and a new maximum. If we look at these variables here, those start out at 0 and 127. So now you can see after changing the new minimum to 32, when I turn this knob, it'll go down to 32 and still up to 127. And we can set those to anything we want. My software there has a filter value in the middle that's now going from, instead of 0, it's going from 32. That, if you see that little bump moving along there for this filter frequency notch, it goes not all the way to the bottom, which you usually stop hearing things when the cutoff value goes down to 0. And so that is how you can take a range of values and map them to a different range of values, all using the map range inside of simple math. And that is your CircuitPython parsec.
Okay, and Scott's show will be back, I think it's next week.
Next week. He's off this week.
That's right.
Also, well rested. Break will be returning super powered and ready to dive into more Bluetooth low energy transfer protocol. Ooh, fun.
All right, time travel. We're going to look around in the world of makers, hackers, artists, engineers, and more. This week, as we started off the show, New York is celebrating right now. 70% of adults in New York State are vaccinated.
Wait, where'd you get this animation from?
From the state government, so I think I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
And this was the big news last night. We went and we saw fireworks by the water because that's what you did. They were ready for it, it seems. All the newspaper says it's over.
It's over.
This is unfortunately what the newspapers look like right before like the 12 Monkeys thing. It's like, it's over, and then it's like, no, it turns out it was just beginning. But hopefully this is over. This has been terrible. New York got hit first, worse, and we're now, I think, lowest positivity in the country right now.
Yes.
So
still people, it's not over. There's still people getting sick.
Well, yeah.
But
and
the numbers are going down.
Yeah, we're
day.
all tired and damaged, so cut us some slack until we recover. It's been tough. So be good to each other. Like this is going to take a while to process. I was talking to someone today, and I said, you know, the weird thing, because I'm just starting to like not have to, like the behind the scenes at Adafruit is like, you know, we have 130 plus people, and there was a lot of like, let's keep everyone safe. So I was just on call for like 24/7, late 8 to 2, for the last year and like, 3 months. And I said, the thing that I noticed that's been missing up until like recently is, once in a while you get if you do things like art and what's considered creative or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I'd get this melody in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that for a song that I want to do for an ADA box or a Circuit Playground video.
Yeah.
Or, a project that I have in mind. And the melody stopped. And they're just starting to come back now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you don't realize what's missing for so long when you go through a crisis, as long as New York and all of us did. And it's odd. It's like, like there's a little bit of music coming back. and I don't know if it's the same for everyone.
What's the song that's playing?
Well, we have a Next Box thing
Oh,
and
yeah,
those
yeah.
things.
Okay.
And there's like certain instruments sometimes I want to use for things that like has a certain feel, and working with Tom, who does our music together. And it's just like, that was just gone. It was like really hard to get.
Yeah.
It was like always turned down, but now it's back a little.
Okay.
So anyways,
That's good.
so that's what's going on.
Okay.
It's happening. And the other thing is for Friday, so Saturday is Juneteenth, Friday, Adafruit. So what we do with holidays, if a holiday ends up on a weekend, we'll do either a Friday or a Monday. So the team has it off because right now we're not working weekends. A lot of people don't work weekends, and I don't think that would be fair.
Yeah.
So Juneteenth is a holiday in New York State now, and I think it passed the House and now it goes to the Senate.
Yeah.
But it's a holiday in a lot of states, and one of the things that I think that was helpful for Adafruit is, our team says, hey, this is something important to us. So we started doing this last year, and it's one of the holidays we wanted to add. And I was asked in the past, how do you, if I work for a company and they're not interested in some holidays yet, one of the ways you can do it is send an email and say, hey, there's this manufacturing company, Adafruit, and they're doing Juneteenth, or all the other holidays that we do, and just ask, like, what would it take for us to be able to do that too? Because I think that one of the hard things now is people don't know how to talk to each other anymore. And so that's the approach I would say, and just say, hey, what would it take to do this together? Now, it might be a federal holiday eventually. Some states recognize some holidays, some don't. And we've always tried to have the most inclusive holidays for all of our team, but I also know not every company is caught up yet, but I think we can lead by example. But anyways, if you work at a company, that's a strategy. If you ever need a hand with stuff like this, let me know. Sometimes employers, because we have August coming up and there's no public holiday, but we want to do one, so we're going to make up a holiday.
That's right.
But,
CircuitPython Day.
But what we do is we tell the team, like, we can make this work, but here's how we can make it work together. And that's been really helpful, and I think that's an approach. Anyways, other things on the time travel. Phil B did a really neat speak and spell. And
Speak away.
Speak and spell video. Take it away, Phil B.
Speak and Spell, 1978, Texas Instruments. We can laugh at it now, but at the time this was magic, when speaking toys typically had a tape or small phonograph record. It had a distinct accent, and you might think that's a product of an algorithmic voice or of phoneme tables, where phrases are built from fragments of speech, but it's neither. Each word and phrase is a recording of Mitch Carr, a radio announcer from Dallas. With limited storage at the time, this couldn't be done with PCM recording, where a waveform represents the physical position of a speaker.
You just won a new car!
It used something called LPC10 encoding. This turns sound into math and back. Think of it like the great-grandfather of MP3, but rather than hundreds of kilobits per second, this was limited to about 1100 bits per second, and that's the other reason for its accent.
I-R-O-N. You are right.
Okay, next week we're going to have the follow-up video on that as well. So for
Stay
Adabox, if you're in the USA, you can sign up for Adabox. You should.
Canada also.
Canada also. One of the things that we did was we told the UK and EU and Switzerland folks that we're pausing Adabox subscriptions, so they know that now.
Yes.
We sent them a nice discount code. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's just impossible to ship Adaboxes worldwide
and
have it for a price that makes sense.
We will when we can.
So we'll have standalone boxes with our European resellers and more, but we'll also try to have something, again, y'all know, besides Amazon, which is not exactly, I think, the way that most people want to run business, Amazon makes it seem like there's free shipping, but there really isn't. The money comes from somewhere, the shipping is paid for somehow, some way by someone. So we don't put anything on top of shipping, it's a pass-through. But for Adabox, we have to come up with a price, and the price was $60 a box. So we're working on figuring out a way to do that worldwide and more. We can do it for the USA and Canada for now. So next up, Colin's Lab. We do a video on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And here is the latest Colin Labs
All in a row.
of the week.
Hot glue is a great way to burn your fingers, but also very handy for adding simple strain relief to electronics wiring. It works well for those stranded wire connections. Battery cases, PCB wiring, really any wiring that needs to stand up to some movement during usage. Before applying, make sure you've got a good solder joint first. Then test to ensure the glue will stick well to the PCB and wire insulation. Add a healthy ring of glue around the base of the joint. Alternatively, you can lay the wire flat and glue it down to protect the solder joint even more. If you need to remove it, use some rubbing alcohol to release the adhesion. Just turn off your glue gun first. The three most common types of capacitors you're likely to use are ceramic, electrolytic, and tantalum. Ceramic capacitors are non-polarized, so you can place them in the PCB either way. Electrolytic caps are usually polarized. Their negative lead needs to connect to a lower voltage than the positive lead. That negative lead is labeled with minus signs. It's usually connected to ground. Tantalum capacitors are also polarized, but they have their positive side marked. Yes, that's opposite from electrolytic. Tantalum caps are also a lot more sensitive to incorrect installation. If you plug an electrolytic in backwards, it usually just won't work as well. But reverse the polarity and tantalums throw a tantrum. Please do not try this at home, but please do mind your cap's polarity. One important characteristic to consider when choosing an op-amp is its rail-to-rail capability. Each voltage level supplied to the op-amp is called a rail, so a typical 5-volt powered project has two rails, one ground at 0 volts and one at positive 5 volts. With this supply, a rail-to-rail op-amp could output a signal ranging all the way from 0 on up to a full 5 volts. This common LM358 op-amp is wired up as a buffer. It'll try to output a copy of its input signal. So, if I feed it a sine wave measuring 3 volts peak to peak and centered at 2.5 volts, it reproduces a nice clean copy of the wave at its output. But when I increase the wave's amplitude to 5 volts peak to peak, the output is clipped. The chip only has 1.5 volts of headroom. It can't quite reach that top rail. If only we had something... Okay, where were we? Right. Rail-to-rail op-amps can output signals with the full voltage range of their power supply, which might not sound like a big deal until you build a buffer circuit with an older design and you only see part of your signal at the output. We can get the full picture by swapping it out for a newer design like the TLV2462. Ah, there's our 5 volt sine wave, and we didn't have to increase the power supply voltage to get it. Thank you, TLV2462. In addition to rail-to-rail output, this chip is also a low-power design. So with chips like these available, why are old op-amp designs still being manufactured? Well, not every application needs a wide output voltage swing, and the LM358 goes for about 1/6 the price of a TLV2462. That'll do. Before sending your PCB design out for manufacturing, it's always a good idea to print out a 1:1 scale copy of it. On actual paper, yeah. It takes almost no effort, and it gives you a physical preview of your board before committing to copper. It's surprisingly easy to overlook certain details while your design is still stuck on a screen, so place chips and connectors on the paper and make sure all the outlines and pin counts are correct. With a sheet of foam placed beneath the paper, you can even simulate mounting components. Check for any necessary slots or mounting holes, and that you don't have two objects trying to occupy the same physical space. That's a good general rule. If your board has them, try using any buttons, knobs, or displays. You can patch up any ergonomic oversights now, instead of having to wait for revision 2.
Okie dokie, that is Colin's Lab. So this week, stay tuned for next week for more Colin's Lab. Okay.
You love it.
So we got jobs.adafruit.com. This is where you can post your skills if you want a cool job, or
Pay the bills.
You can
Hire people.
And we have a
Listen
pretty
for
good
volunteer
yeah,
opportunities, too.
all sorts of things. So this week's job is exhibit fabricator, I think level 3 or
Whoa.
3. Science Museum of Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota, full time. Check it out.
These are fun, and they're tougher than you think to make a really good, durable exhibition.
Yeah, but if you think about it, if you wanted to hire people who could do this, the Adafruit community,
It's super fun.
a lot of museums just use Adafruit stuff. So.
I know people who do this for a living, and it's quite a living, and it's
cool.
very enjoyable, and you get to see kids really have fun with your stuff and break it.
Yeah. All right, next up. It's Python on hardware time.
Yay, Blinka!
All right.
Okay.
There's
what's
a lot
new?
going on.
I know.
And I'm going to just go through what we're going to do this week. So this week, and I'm going to mention this, then we're going to go to it. Tom's Hardware Best RP2040 boards of 2021.
Oh, yeah?
There's some exciting news with Adafruit in it.
How many are ours?
Well, we'll get to that at the end.
Oh, great.
GitHub repository used from within Visual Studio Code. Got this to Anne, who does newsletter, because I thought this was a good thing that'll really help people.
Microsoft Software,
Yeah.
Microsoft, GitHub,
Yeah.
working together.
You can use GitHub from within Visual Studio
I
Code.
gotta try using. I use Atom and I use Moo and Arduino. I gotta start using
Yeah.
Visual Studio.
Article about how this year became Windows, a year of being a first-class Python development environment. That always wasn't true, but it's getting closer and closer and better now. As far as the type of things that you can see around the web, we have the Make Boards Guide, Adafruit Neo Trinky. There's a review there. MagTag Keeps, get a top post from Reddit. World News using Reddit's API and
Oh,
displaying
fun!
the Adafruit
You know
MagTag.
the Reddit API is really easy to use. I
Yep.
used it for one of our MagTag projects.
Here's a really neat RP2040 powered shortcut keyboard with CircuitPython. That's also on Tom's Hardware. Pymaroni got Blink working on CircuitPython and Seat Studio Shao. Here's a really neat wearable that uses Python. Here is the M4 CircuitPython 7 beta with Airlift getting an MPY library from bundle and community bundled HDMI output from the Gameduino 3X Dazzler. Here's some cute keycaps because we're doing
Yeah,
tons
so
of
cute.
keycap stuff. A lot of keyboards, 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 a lot of keyboards. But what I wanted to do this week, I guess one other thing. Shout out to MicroPython. They're part of the movement. I think most are all open source to get better language. So they're replacing master slave with controller peripheral for SPI. You can check that out. And then you can check out the roundup of all of the companies from Microsoft to GitHub to Adafruit to Linux to Red Hat that have started making these changes in better, more updated modern language for some of these outdated terms. So for this week's the thing, now there's so much Python news all the
too
time.
much.
There is too much. But that means it means it's all working and we're all working together. Actually, let me just do one last thing before I get to the other piece. If you're looking to speed up Python, this is the founder, Guido, and they're looking to hire. Microsoft's hiring 2 people on their team to speed up standard Python, CPython. So that's kind of cool, neat job.
Is he at Microsoft now?
Might be, or at least talking to him and helping him out. So
Well, it's a first class
development
environment now.
So Tom's Hardware Best RP20 boards
2040, okay. Wanna go there?
of 2021.
Okay.
And I just want to point out,
It's a community.
it's really good.
It's not just us.
It's not just us. And awards and listings are nice.
Okay. Well, obviously the Pico.
The Pico's number 1.
Well,
Why is
I
it?
mean, like-
Well, it's low cost, small size, easy use, built-in ADC, no OCBC. That's
but
the
it
only
is like
drag.
the board.
Yeah, only 3 pins. But what's the first one besides that one? Oh my God! Oh my goodness! We didn't write a speech. It's the the feather, the Adafruit feather. It's weird. I'm gonna try to move this window around here. No, this window doesn't want to go. Let's see. I'm gonna try to go this way. No.
That is weird.
I'm gonna try to.
This is-
I'm gonna try to get these websites these days.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the first one besides Pico is Adafruit feather.
Feather.
Then we have the Citron Maker
Pico. I'm going to get
Pi
this
Pico.
to stock because it is a nice board.
Then we've got, look, another Adafruit board. Adafruit Cutie Pie RP2040.
Not GPI pins because it's a cutie pie.
And then the Pymaroni Tiny 2040. And then Pymaroni Pico Lipo.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the Arduino Nano RP2040 Connect.
Yes.
And now that supports CircuitPython.
That's right.
Then you got,
Itsy
oh look,
bitsy.
an Adafruit Itsy Bitsy RP2040. And then Pymaroni Kibo.
Kibo.
Run CircuitPython, and the SparkFun
The Pro
Micro.
Micro.
So that is cool. Thank you, Tom's Hardware, for checking out our boards and more. And that's a nice top 10 list. So if you're looking to buy some of these, this is a good list. Good work. And that is Python on Hardware News this week.
Blinka, blinka, blinka. Blinka, blinka, blinka.
All right, so let's do some.
Oh boy, it's time.
Let's do some open source news.
Oh goodness.
So here's the thing.
All right, let me get comfortable.
Just get ready.
You get comfy.
Well, this is just going to be a small discussion, very short.
Small.
But
Short.
each week we try to cover a topic that's going on, and sometimes for us and our team, it's just like, oh, look at what's going on in this open source community. Is there anything we can learn from it? So this was on the Nix OS
Yeah.
repo, and it has something to do with Home Assistant. And the creator of a library,
Who is also a developer of Home Assistant.
also a developer, said, hey, as the author of this package that is being repackaged here, I'm against it being repacked into here. Well, licensing-wise, I cannot stop you. I do hope you honor my request. Thank you for considering and respecting the author's wishes. Well, as we all know, that doesn't really work anymore because people will do open source, and if it's under an open source license, some people will say, well, it's open source, that's legal, I will do whatever I want.
Right.
And
you can.
And you can. But I'm quoting some people that I respect in this industry. They said, just because something is legal and it doesn't make it right, and if you're doing stuff only because it's like this legal letter of the law for these things, you might be a sociopath. So I understand that point of view too. So this is an interesting thing. What happens when you do open source and your package is put into something, but they're using really outdated code, really old packages?
Yeah.
And
Which is what this person was worried about. It was like the packages don't get up to date and people are going to bug me with bug reports.
So this is the thing. This is the biggest problem.
And they're not using the latest code.
Yeah, so the biggest problem is with open source right now, when you release something for free, you're basically agreeing to get almost unending support, that free support that you're going to provide.
Yes.
That's what you're signing up for.
Yes.
And
no money almost. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes you get donations, but it's fair.
And one of the problems is that it's not fair to the users because they get outdated software that's put up into these packages. They're trying to report a bug, never done it before.
Yeah.
They don't know what's going on. And then you tell them, hey, you have outdated software. They're like, no, I don't have the latest. I have the latest Debian release. And so
Or
this
Nexos or whatever, yeah.
This happened to JWZ. JWZ, a lot of people know, one of the people who made Netscape, said, I would like Debian to stop sharing my screensaver. And then JWZ said, look, it's the old one. It's a security issue. Don't do it. So he put a message in there. And then the way it worked is like they took the message out. You can always fork the code.
But it was kind of messed up.
So everything is...
It was bad. Nobody was happy.
Yeah,
He's even said that. He's like, absolutely nobody's happy. Everyone's miserable.
Everyone's miserable. So here's the thing that I think we should all think about with open source is you publish open source because you want it out there to get used, but you also have these tools that we're using like GitHub. And until recently, it was really hard to manage stuff on GitHub. Anyone can get into our inbox. Anyone basically can harass you. Now there's good issues, good bug reports, good things, but that's not how it always works. And what's happening is people are saying, please don't put it in this thing because they don't want to deal with the support thing. So I hope we can get away from should people do open source or not and get into like, can we make these tools better so the issues are handled better? And also, if the communities can work better together, I think that's the other solution where it's like, hey, like instead of distributing this older chunk of code, can't you do the following?
Yeah, I think this was interesting because it does, this doesn't come up that often, but it does come up once in a while. We also had someone in the CircuitPython community who was taking MIT licensed code and relicensing it as GPL. Can you do that legally? Yes, but it's like really lame to do that. It's like you should really respect what the author of the code intended, which was that it should be licensed under MIT and not relicensed without any changes to the code. It was just like redistributed under a different license. So I think it's a challenge, right? Because again, like nobody's happy. This is the biggest issue for developers, right? Like I can be annoyed that, sometimes I upgrade software and like a dependency I'm using changes, and that's annoying, but like I can solve that. It's like, I just have to update my code, or I pin to a version. This happens all the time, like click updates constantly, or like pilot changes, or like I'm using Arduino and like something changes in one core versus the other. But like you can if-def around that, but then when you have people, and in this case, there's two people who have two valid but conflicting ideas. One person who says, I don't want my package to be installed as part of your dependency bundle. And the other person who's like, well, why did you publish it to PyPI if you don't want people to add it as a dependency for code?
Yeah.
I think that we don't yet have a good language for folks to express what they want done with their software. And I think when people express that,
Yeah.
I think right now, like everyone's sort of trying to guess.
Well, there's
what
also
folks
there's
are
also a
trying to-
monetary thing now. They're like, I want to do open source, but please don't sell it as a software as a service. So you have these cloud licenses, like use it for this, but
which is
and
of
then
course,
is that really open source? No.
which comes
Maybe.
up, and some people are
Possibly.
like, oh, it's me. It's like I can't believe they did this because Amazon's using it.
Yeah.
I see both sides. The whatever the database developers are like, we don't like that Amazon is commercializing our software without supporting us as much as they should, and we're doing support for their customers. On the other hand, Amazon is like, well, why did you release this open source? Like, we'll just fork it and take over maintenance of it. I think it's not easy, right? I don't know the answers to it.
No one does. No one does. That's why I want to talk about it because I
And
think
we do this too. Like we had things that we wanted, like deep changes that we wanted to have made to MicroPython, and we chatted with MicroPython team, and they didn't want to do it. And we said, okay, well, this is such a deep change.
Yeah, and
that
we'll
it
make sure it's
requires a
clear.
fork.
We'll make sure it's clear that this is something different, and you're not going to have to deal with the support. And we were clear.
It's a different name,
different everything, and we take
yeah.
on most of the support, even like some MicroPython support, because people have questions about stuff.
Well, we did. We actually did a lot of the early tutorials for MicroPython.
Yeah.
We did on Learn.
So
yeah, it's. I think it's interesting because it shows. This is like it's a security vulnerability. It's a social vulnerability. It's one of the things that I think as open source communities we do some things very well together. This is one of the things that we don't quite know how to do.
Yeah.
Yet.
And then there's like big business models. Red Hat charges for consultation support in their open source. There's a lot of ways to get to this, but I think the number one thing is people who do open source shouldn't feel punished for doing open source, and I think that's just like one of the core things. So
That's definitely a thing.
Yeah, so one of the ideas that we had is, and maybe we'll share this with GitHub, is it'd be good to maybe have, yes, you can label an issue for feature request or enhancement, but it might be nice to just be very clear that issues are only issues and have a separate tab that is feature requests, because at least that would
And tech
keep those
support.
over those.
So half of my weekend is deleting or replying to issues that are not issues. They're people asking for tech support help, and I'm like, this isn't the right place to do it. And I feel bad because it's like I can tell that this is their first thing they did on GitHub. They made a GitHub account specifically to open up an issue. And tech support, I don't do tech support in GitHub issues. It's not the place for it. It should go, it's like not like a bug report, but people saying, like, I don't know how to install this on Arduino. That goes in the forums, but it's like people, and really people are like, oh, well, why don't you put in a template? We have templates. It doesn't make any difference.
And one of the things that, it's unfortunate this happens a lot. I'm not going to dwell on it because I don't want I don't want people to kind of see what our weekends and evenings are like sometimes, because it's a big, wide, open internet. Is someone, first time of opening up an issue, it's a feature request, and Lamore will say, hey, this is a feature request. I'm going to close this issue. And then they immediately decide that all women are the enemy because it says Lady Ada, and then there's like sexism and racism. You name it, it starts happening because someone told them no. And there probably needs to be more education on like how to file a good issue, bug requests, there's templates and all that stuff. But if it could be feature requests as a tab, I think that might be something. So anyways, just some ideas. We'll continue to talk about it. Other open source hardware news. Congratulations, Mark, who did his first ever open source hardware, and he actually sent it to us. This is as seen on Show and Tell Featherwing. Check this out.
Yes.
And he sent this to us, and it was a thank you for the year of doing Show and Tell during this unfortunate pandemic. And one thing I learned is we have to retire the phrase "avoid it like the plague," because we did not avoid it like a plague.
No, we ran right into the plague.
So, congratulations, Mark.
People wanted to get the
Got your
plague.
open source hardware, and I think this is, just to bolt these on each other. This is a community. Mark saw this and said, "Oh, I want to open source my hardware because I see the value in doing open source. Also, I learn from an open source company and more." So I think all these things can work together better. Anyways, we're an open source hardware company, 2,491 guides, almost up to 2,500. Lady Ada, what was on the big board this week?
Okay, well, we had a couple guide updates. We had some new guides. Melissa did an update to the CircuitPython on the Linux and Raspberry Pi guide. She added a whole page on how to customize the chip select pins when you're using the hardware SPI, which is highly desired. Also updated the PyTFT guide to match. And we have one new guide, the Adafruit Slider Trinky guide. More guides coming. People have been doing a lot of code lately. And we also updated the guide on contributing to CircuitPython with Git and GitHub. I think we had a couple things that changed with how we do our linting and pre-commit, and Kat and I updated that guide. So a lot of guide updates this week.
Okay. Alrighty, next up, we have some main New York City factory footage. Take away, Adafruit Factory. And it wouldn't be main New York City factory footage without some Disney building across the street, time lapse. And then we have a really nice sunrise crane view. Bink, 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 bink. Wake up, New York.
Wake up, little crane.
You're vaccinated.
Time to crane.
Yeah. All right, 3D printing. Now, Pedro, we have two videos. We're going to play them back to back, and then we shall see you on the other side. Take it away, Noam Pedro.
Hey, what's up folks? In this project, we're building a smart fume extractor with CircuitPython and the Adafruit Funhouse. This uses a PC fan and an air quality sensor to make a fume extractor that can change speed based on the quality of the air. The fan is controlled with PWM using an EMC 2101 fan controller. A mini fan in the center helps direct fumes to a SPG30 air quality sensor. The speed of the fan is mapped to the sensor, so it'll automatically adjust when it senses any solder fumes. The sensor values and fan speed are displayed on the Funhouse's 1.5-inch TFT display. With CircuitPython and the Display.io library, you can use custom fonts and bitmap images. There's a carbon activated filter fitted over the PWM fan so it can absorb any solder smoke. All of the electronics are secured in a 3D printed enclosure with parts that snap fit together. The idea and code behind this CircuitPython project is from Liz Clark of Blitz City DIY. The main program takes readings from the sensor and maps it to the fan's RPM. On boot up, you can decide to connect to Wi-Fi and log data to a feed using Adafruit I/O. Text objects are updated on the display and values are printed in the serial console. Be sure to check out the code walkthrough by Liz on the Adafruit Learn system. With Adafruit I/O, you can create a visual dashboard of the sensor data and fan speed. Using a line chart, we can plot our sensor data and see it change over time by setting up our feeds. In the code, we can set how frequently to send data to a feed in Adafruit I/O. With your fumes in the cloud, you can use your mobile device to access your dashboard anywhere remotely. The wiring and assembly for this build is documented in our Learn Guide. There you can get the circuit diagram, demo code, and instructions on getting set up with CircuitPython. Our enclosure design in Fusion 360 features 3D models of the electronics with parts from GrabCAD and McMaster-Carr. The challenge in this project led to designing a cover for the mini fan to make better airflow. An opening just behind the sensor allows the fumes to exit through the back of the mount. The Adafruit Funhouse has lots of built-ins that make these type of projects great for folks who are just getting started. We hope this project inspires you to check out CircuitPython and Adafruit I/O.
And don't forget Gnome Pedro 3D Hangouts every single Wednesday. All right, lady, it's time.
It's that time. On NPI.
This week's Eye on NPI is from Nordic, one of our favorite companies. Lydia, what is the
That's right.
Eye on NPI brought to you by DigiKey
This
this week?
All right, so I'm wearing my Nordic shirt because last time I did a Nordic. We've done a couple of
It's
Nordic.
the rules.
Eye on NPI.
We wear the shirts of the
And
thing.
they were like, hey, can you wear a Nordic? I was wearing a Particle shirt because Particle uses Nordic, but
Yeah.
they were like,
They sent us shirts.
Send us nice
Now
shirts.
we're going to say,
send us
look, we
shirts.
got a shirt.
Okay, so this week's IMPI is from Nordic. They emailed me actually and let me know about this new product they're coming out with. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. So this is the NPM1100. So you probably know Nordic for their wireless stuff, their Bluetooth Low Energy, and their short hop mesh wireless networks. Of course, we use the NRF 52840 and the Circuit Playground Bluefruit. If you use a microbit or other Bluefruit boards, you've seen us use the NRF 51, the NRF 52832, the NRF 8001, ancient Bluetooth Low Energy chip, but was, at the time a great thing because it was SPI to Bluetooth. And if we check out, this is from iFixit, the AirTag from Apple. It uses, if you see on the left there, if you zoom in, it has an NRF 52832. So obviously, they're very well known for their wireless Bluetooth chipsets, also now cellular. They're doing some cellular. And one of the things that you notice quite quickly when you are dealing with Bluetooth and the NRF series is that folks that are using these chips need them to be very low power. Like low power usage is something that's really important to people because your chances are you're doing cellular, so it's battery powered. You're doing BLE, so it's battery powered. And a lot of these things, especially like this AirTag, they send data once in a while, not often, and then they go to sleep in between. So power management is something that's very important. And I think considering that their last product that they sold was that we featured was the Power Profiler 2. It's clear that there's a lot of customers that are using Nordic chipsets and are having difficulty with like getting the performance and battery power that they're expecting, right? They read the specifications and they're like, oh, it can do, this many microamps or nanoamp sleep. How come I'm not getting that? And Nordic has to sort of reply and say, well, you have to measure all of your power usage and you have to go to sleep mode and you have to, use this kind of converter and your quiescence being lost here and there. Obviously, the PPK2 was a tool that they were using in-house and also their customers were using to try and analyze, what are the power uses of their circuits. And I got this from their presentation on the NPM 1100, and they're saying, look, it might seem a little unusual that we're doing a power management chip. That's what the PM 1100 is. But actually isn't, because we are a power management IC company. A lot of the stuff we do is power management. Yes, of course we do Bluetooth and we do Wi-Fi, or we do cellular and we do ARM cores. But inside of those we have power management systems because, we have to have such deep sleep modes, be able to wake up, do a measurement, advertise Bluetooth, and go back to sleep, and last for a very long time on a coin cell. So the NPM 1100 it's kind of a 3-in-1 power management chip. So the NPM is for Nordic Power Management. 1100, I don't know, it's the first one, it's really the first one, and revision 00. So inside, starting from the left, there's a USB to battery charger. So it takes USB power in, right? USB-C or USB micro B or whatever, and it can charge a battery. You can change, here it has a 400 milliamp battery charger, but it's actually adjustable. It's up to 400 milliamps, which is a fairly chunky battery. Most people use 100 or 50 to 100 to 200. You can, of course, tune it down, but it can do linear battery charging. And then on the top right, it can give you unregulated power out from the USB or battery. So that's good for powering like your radio or like some LEDs or whatever high power stuff that you need, where the higher voltage, the better. And then at the bottom, there's a buck DC-DC converter that'll give you 150 milliamps out. So not a ton, but enough to run your wireless and a couple of accessories, maybe a little display, some buttons, OLED, what have you, a couple of sensors. And it's also adjustable 1.8 to 3.0 volts, 30 volts out. And here is the schematic, I grabbed from their eval board, design. They had a couple of designs where they're like, here, copy the design for usage. So one thing to note for this chip is that everything is pin strapped. So you'll note on the left, there's like ICHG pin and V-term. Those are the two pins that you use to select whether it's a 4.2 or 4.1 voltage LiPo battery, and the charge current as well. And on the right, you see some LED outputs. But everything is basically pin strapped. So you don't use I2C to program it. You use resistors and GPIO pins if you want to configure it. Top left, you can see there's the D plus D minus pins. You're like, what's up with that? That's used so it can detect whether, what current the charger can supply, because, Apple uses the D plus and D minus pins, and that's a standard to indicate how much current can be drawn. So it will respect that current if you connect those pins up. And basically, it's a 3-in-1. You've got your, USB input, regulated output DC-DC, unregulated output, and battery charger. And it's really small, right? It's all in one. And so instead of having maybe 2 chips or 3 chips, you have 1 chip. And here it is showing with basically the capacitors, a couple of 402 resistors to set the charge current and such. Most of the pins are just strapped. And then there's an inductor for the buck converter. And so, they did a case study in the presentation. They showed, look, if you go from a buck converter usually is bigger and more expensive, but because we kind of combo it with your LiPo charger, you kind of get a 2-for-1. It's the same price as just having one or the other. But with a DC-DC, even though it's bigger, right, you see the bottom right there, the solution is 23 millimeters squared instead of, a simpler low dropout regulator, which is 12 millimeter, and because it doesn't need the inductor. However, your battery life is double because you can squeeze more current out, especially if you're going to buck down to like 2 volts, 2.2 volts. The Nordic chips can run very nicely at those voltages. You can suck more current out of that battery. You're drawing less current out of the battery, and you can go to much lower voltages. So it's, yes, it's designed to be used with the Nordic chips. Obviously, they're promoting it for use with the NRF series chips, the 91s, the 53s, the 52s. However, I'll say this chip is not just for use with those their chipsets. You could of course use it with any chipset. It is agnostic to the wireless. Just they're branching out into a new thing. It's meant as a sister product to their existing lines, but I don't think in any way you should think, oh, I can only use this with Nordic. No, you can use this with any project you want that may need adjustable voltage output, has a LiPo battery that needs charging. And you want to kind of have, another thing that's very nice about this is it has a ship mode, so it can go into ultra low quiescent current. The quiescent current is usually about like 800 nanoamperes typical, which is quite low, but it can go to half that in ship mode. So when you ship out a product to somebody, you don't want it running, but you also probably don't have an on-off switch because it's not very common to have anymore. In this case, you can use a button or a GPIO to get out of ship mode to wake up the regulator. And don't drain your battery out completely. So when people get the product, it's basically ready to use the moment you get it. So that's the bottom buttons there.
All right. Not only is this efficient, Lady is efficient, but DigiKey can get this to you efficiently.
And it's in stock,
yeah.
Right? I'm trying to do the NPIs that are available and in stock, and this one is in stock. So you can pick this up, the NPM 1100, and then CAA. There's also an eval board, which we showed the photo of. Here,
show for a second.
Showing it overhead real fast. So that's it. This is the solution. So maybe I'll use I'll use the zoomer. Okay, there you go. So this is the full solution. This is the chip. You need some input and output capacitors, obviously, because you want to have capacitors on the battery charging, on the input to the buck converter. This is the inductor. It's a little chip scale inductor, and capacitor on the output. But that's it. It's a small CSP scale chip, and then you can use, I'll zoom out, even more zoom in. Down here, there's little flippy switches you can use to select. So it's a very nice little eval board. I'll note that this battery, I believe, is reverse wired from how Adafruit batteries are wired. Just looking for the ground pin, so just watch out for that. Check the documentation before you plug in one of our batteries.
All right, that's on PI this week.
On MPI.
Okay, before we go to Ion MPI, don't forget the code is BT Clock. We'll do new products.
New.
All right, what's new?
New. All right, we've got, I see this in like little toys and stuff. It's a double CR 2032 battery holder, but it's like a pancake style. It's top to bottom. We have one that's side to side style, and I thought it would be kind of cool to have this. I'll just show it on the overhead real fast because I want to show how it's put together. Okay, so, oh my goodness, this is out here. So, I have it here. I'm just showing it's powering this LED. It has a nice on-off switch. This pops open, and then you can see it holds 2 coin cell batteries. So again, it's like if you want something that's pancake style, this works quite well. I like how it's a very pokey outy switch, so you can't miss it. I see these a lot in like little toys and games and stuff. It just comes with bare wires. I soldered them onto this LED. But handy if you want, a very small coin cell battery holder that can power your 6-volt project.
Next.
All right.
More of these.
Next up, more of these. So these are adorable little silicone nubules that stick into your ports to keep them dust-free. We have construction going on, so actually my ports are getting dusty. So we have them in USB-A, and here is USB-C. So these fit into the ports. So the USB-A, USB-C goes into the port, so it's shown here. And then HDMI. So if you have a computer with HDMI, or maybe you have a Raspberry Pi with HDMI, slot them in.
Yeah.
They come in packs of 10 each. They're soft, silicone, rubbery. they work quite well, and I'm kind of into them. So
Yeah, at first I'm just like, am I going a little too far? And then turns out I wasn't going far enough. Okay,
Yeah.
next up.
okay, next up, we've got some terminal block breakouts for the Raspberry Pi Pico. If you have a Pico, you're probably like, hey, why want to use this for industrial uses? You want to connect this up to a DIN rail. So we've got 2 terminal block setups. This one is kind of like the narrow, thin version. Let me grab it and I'll show it off because there's stuff on the sides here. Okay, so Raspberry Pi Pico, of course, plugs in like so. Hold on one moment. Okay, focus lock. You can see the USB over here, and then if you wanted to solder in the headers for the debug port, you can do that as well. And then it comes, this PCB comes fully assembled, and then every terminal block has a nice label showing you. It's 1 by 1, right? So it's like each pin matches up with the pin on the Pico. So there's a lot of grounds, and then you've got all the power pins over here, more GPIO over there, everything nicely labeled. And then you can mount this onto a DIN rail or onto an enclosure because it's got this nice kind of DIN rail-y. It's DIN rail looking, but it's actually not. It doesn't have the sliders for a DIN rail. But you could probably get the sliders and add it on, or you can just mount it using these 2 little ears over here.
Next up.
Okay. Next up, similar but not quite the same. This one is a terminal block breakout, but it's like side-to-side mode instead of like long mode. I don't know how to say this. But these are much bigger terminal blocks. Pico still plugs in onto the top here, and then you've got these 45-degree terminal blocks. The wires go in from the side, and you screw them down. Everything is, again, labeled 1 by 1. This would be better for thicker wires, I think. It's a bigger construction. It doesn't come with the nice plastic bottom, right? So this is for direct usage. There are some mounting holes, but people are always like, hey, I just want to plug it in and terminal block connect something for a robot or industrial use. These 2 do the job quite nicely.
Okay, next up is a Bluetooth clock. That's why the code was BT clock.
Okay,
so here it is.
Bluetooth clock. Let's go to the overhead, so maybe it'll change over while I'm talking about it.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a Bluetooth e-ink clock. It is not like a full pixel display. It's a segmented display. So in case you're like, can I have it display anything I want and hack it? No, like you're not going to have it display anything more than what you see here. It has a kind of a generic Bluetooth chipset inside. It has this e-ink display that updates once a minute. So hopefully in the next few seconds it'll update. And it also has humidity. So here is the humidity in percentage and temperature. It's in centigrade right now, but you can change it to Celsius. This little happy face just says, hey, that it's good humidity, good temperature for humans. I don't know, it's a happy human face. The reason we're stocking this is that even though you can't reprogram this, oh, there you go, it just changed. So you saw that was a change that was a partial update because it only updated 2 segments, and then if we wait another minute, it will update the whole display. So if it's cool, we'll hang out here. Inside, it is emitting the time, I think, definitely the humidity and temperature over Bluetooth as like data signals. And so a lot of people who have an ESP32 using Home Assistant or even using our code with Blinka or Circuit Playground, you can read the temperature and humidity that's being sent from this board as on your Bluetooth controller. So this acts as a peripheral, and it's like, it's not an advertisement. You would connect to it and you can read the data, but it's a very nice, like all-in-one, not only like a clock that runs for quite a long time, but as a sensor node. So we have the little mini sensor nodes that we stocked. Now we just have the larger one that's also a nice e-ink clock. I'll say the only thing that's a little annoying,
There goes.
Full just update. The only thing that's a little annoying is that if you want to, and then when it does an hour, it actually does the full screen clean. So you saw that.
Yeah.
To set the time, you have to use the computer. There's an app, but the app only runs in China. And then if you put your app in China mode, if you set your region to China, then the time zone is wrong. Basically, we link to a web Bluetooth application that you can use. You just connect to it, use Chrome because that has web Bluetooth, connect to it, and then you set the time through your browser. You only have to do it once.
Okay.
E-ink clock.
Next
Very nice.
up.
Oh, it's got a little magnet bottom. Okay, this is really easy. It's just two double-sided foam pieces. We include these in a lot of kits, and once in a while people are like, I need more of these foams, or I didn't get the foams, or I lost my foams. We now just have them as a 2-pack of foam.
Okay. And last up at the start of the show, tonight besides you, Lady, our community, our team,
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry.
our customers.
I dropped things.
Yeah, you're just like, goodbye, Trinky.
I just threw it.
Flew it off.
I threw
It
away.
is the Adafruit keycap.
Custom keycap.
Limited edition. We were not going to probably do these forever.
Coming soon.
It's coming soon. Sign up. We don't put our logo on anything. It's just one of the things that we decided to do when we
Usually
do put it
only
on
on circuit
something.
boards,
Yeah, we put it on the circuit boards. So this is something special, and I think
Yeah.
people will enjoy it because what they'll do is they'll put this keycap on their computer and they'll set it up to go to the Adafruit site or maybe our YouTube channel or whatever. So let's take a look at the world premiere of the Adafruit keycap.
Okay. All right. So, so I found a service that will make a custom keycap. And the way this works is actually, if you look, it's a translucent plastic keycap, and then it has a thin, opaque black coating that's then etched away, right? So you can kind of see that. You can see the reverse on the bottom. So the only thing is, obviously, keys don't have the LEDs in the center. Although we're looking at trying to find a key that does have an LED that can emit through the center. In general, they emit from the top, north side or south side, whatever. They're from the side. So it's just something to watch for. We etched, these come in R4 styling, so they're kind of used for like escape keys or like if you want to have a function key. So we kind of recommend that you put it so that the angle makes it so it's towards the LED. It's not going to be fully lit. You can see it's a little shadowed, but it still looks really good. And also, I didn't want to have it only in the top because sometimes people have south keys and some people have east or west. So basically, it'll work okay even if it's, on the opposite side of the LED. It just won't glow as much, but it still definitely glows through. So we are starting with a custom Adafruit keycap, and then stay tuned because we're going to get
There might be more, we'll see.
custom keycaps. But I like these because they work great with our Neo keys. I have it here on a Neo key Trinky because it's just an easy way to have one key glow. But of course, this works on any keyboard with a Cherry MX cross. So it's a very, very, very common key type. Chances are, if you have a mechanical keyboard, pop one of the keys off. If it has a little cross section, then you can use this key.
And that's new products.
Beep, 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 beep.
Okay, well, we're going to answer some questions. I have some lined up.
I'm going to press the Adafruit key.
Yeah, the Ada key. You can go over to Discord, start putting them in, but let's do a little bit of top secret.
Okay. We did a lot of videos.
We did a lot of videos. I'm only going to show two, and then I'm going to show an upcoming thing that we're doing.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Hey, Lady Ada, what is this?
All right, I'm finally starting my project I've been putting off for a couple of weeks, which is porting our Seesaw core, which you can see here in the rotary encoder. This is SAMD09 that takes I2C in and then can read a rotary encoder. So it's like our little I2C to anything converter. We use it for a lot of stuff. You can drive NeoPixels, analog digital converters, etc. We use the SAMD09, which has been working great. I love the SAMD09, but I can't get it anymore. So I'm thinking of porting the code over to the ATtiny 8XY series, which is a low-cost 3 or 5 volt microcontroller. It's not as powerful, but I can seem to get it. So I'm using this core from Spence Conde, and this is the pinout that they have for the Arduino core that runs on the ATtiny X17. So that's what I'm trying to port with. So far, I've got some blinking going.
All right, Lady Ada, what is this?
Okay, I'm still working on my ATtiny 817 port of the Seesaw code, which was SAMD09, but I can't get SAMD09s. So I'm porting the I2C to GPIO or analog code that we written a couple years ago for the SAMD09 to this chip. I did digital I/O in the last video, and this one I'm working for an analog input. So if you see on the computer, I've got it reading the analog voltage, and this is all going through I2C. So over here, you can actually see the debug from the ATtiny 817. It's getting the request, sending the data, and then this Arduino compatible is actually reading the analog through the I2C and outputting it to the serial monitor. But So far, so good. So digital and analog working so far.
And here's a preview of the the Qt RP 2040 Trinky friend. It's like an alligator, and the teeth are kind of like USB, and then the tail is a stemma. So that's a little bit of a preview, and that's top secret for the week.
Get back in the vault.
All right, question time, and I've got some questions lined up, Lady Ada.
Okay, well, let's get to
We're
them.
going to do this. Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
All right, let's hit these right away. For the APX 192, it's useful to, let's say, power down a screen or GPS, etc. Adafruit, can you shut down power on one of the pins of the Nordic chip, power chip?
You know, I actually don't know. I don't have the data sheet in front of me. So check the data sheet. There could be like an enable pin, or you might be able to use one of those GPIO pins and toggle them. But that's actually a good thing to post in the Nordic app developer forum because they haven't released all the examples for that power chip. And I think if you have a situation, they'll probably be able to tell you how to do it with that chip.
Okay. Next question. Adafruit makes some amazing product contributes to a tremendous amount of software libraries. Ever wanted to patent an item? Curious how it works in open source hardware. Okay, the answer is we did try to get a patent for like LED stuff, and the reason we got it is, can we make an open source patent? So anyone who wants to use it, they can use it. And if they get attacked by patent trolls, maybe we can build a patent moat. So if the patent troll comes after one of the people that wants to work on open patents, we could say, well, if you come after us open patent folks, we're going to come after your patents because you're infringing on one of ours. And so that's one way it could work. Generally, though, we don't patent anything. And we do, and I will be able to talk about this eventually, we're 4 for 4. We've had 4 patent trolls come after us, and we did not have to go to court. We were very smart, and they went away. But we know it's a thing, and it's not cheap. But they didn't troll us the way they wanted to. Next up, can the Trinky label be applied to products not created by Adafruit? Drop me a note, pt@adafruit.com. Trinky is one of the names that we use for things, but that's the cool thing. We can work together, and we can figure something out, just like lots of people make feathers. Next up, what has been the most rewarding aspect of building and running Adafruit? Both of us. I'll just go.
Go for it.
Easy. I think once in a while in life you are given a chance to help enormous amounts of people. We all have a way to do that. We just have the gift of being able to help a lot of folks. So you get to see the results of that once in a while, whether it be someone using your stuff for accessibility, or that 10-year-old that you met 10 years ago, now they're an engineer helping others. I think that's the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see the journeys, people that we employ here, people in the community. They're growing up, they're becoming engineers, or they're dabbling and they're having fun with electronics. To me, I think that's so cool. It's like, this is my way of sharing with people how much I enjoy making electronics and building stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and I have an update that goes along with this question. If given the chance to buy Hackaday, Phil, because I started it, would you? The Siemens PR team got back to me. They said they're going to answer the questions, which is kind of cool.
Yay.
We'll see. Also, TI got back to me. They're going to send those questions over about the fork of CircuitPython they did for TI calculators.
Yay.
For those who don't know, Siemens bought SupplyFrame, which owns Hackaday and Tindy. In the past, Hackaday got purchased by SupplyFrame. I started Hackaday 16 years ago. Nothing to do with it now besides being a reader. So the answer to the question is, if it meant preserving Hackaday, if it was going to get closed, I would purchase it and do something good with it. Probably just continue doing it in some way. I would work with some of the same authors. But if it was no reason other than they just put a high price tag on it, Adafruit's site and blog gets more traffic than Hackaday now. A lot of people don't know that because we don't have to sell ads.
I think
and
it's
plus I already did it.
Yeah, it's like it exists and we exist. I don't need to own it. We already have a community.
But I would make sure if it was going to close, if I had the opportunity to keep it going or to preserve it the best way possible.
Of course.
Do you have any experience with the Latte Panda from DF Robot? I know this is an info question, but I would like one. I want to know your opinion.
I haven't actually used it, but pick one up and try it out, and then let us know. Write a review on a blog post or something, and send it over because I actually don't own one of those.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get Blinker running on it.
Is this happening now? Yes. Is this something live now? Yes. Can I put my question here? Yes. How do I calculate the equivalent voltage of multiple voltage sources with different V in parallel, not in series?
You cannot connect multiple voltages in parallel. They'll destroy each other. So that's not possible. Voltages can only be connected in series. Current sources can be connected in parallel, and then you just add them together. But voltage sources, you do not want to connect mismatched voltage sources in parallel.
Can this run reverse black with white text?
No, it's
Got
very
it.
uncustomizable. The thing I like about it is it's a sensor node. It's not a hacking platform. Believe me, I opened one up and I was kind of like looking at it, and it's just like, it's not quite hackable. I think it's running like a dialogue Bluetooth chipset.
Okay. I'm going to just do one last little round of checking for the questions. I do not see any
We got to them all.
additional questions. I think we got to them all. We did. Oh, there's one more. Oh, wait. Doctor, you got one more? I'm going to start to prepare the goodbye as you type in. No pressure.
Right, who's in the chat?
Tonight in the chat, I'm going to say thank you to Takara.
It's
Thank
Takara.
you, Takara,
Thank you,
for all your work
Takara.
behind the scenes here at Adafruit. Also, Takara is a very good author. All of our authors are really good. Takara has a lot of good posts.
Top blog.
So if you go to the blog and read some of the posts from Takara, you will enjoy it. So,
She learned from the best.
well, I think we're all on each other's shoulders. Okay. All right, well, okay. I'm doing an Iron Man cosplay, and I'm planning to do lights and sound all over. What do you think about having independent power for each hand, the arc reactor helmet versus combined power for all power control?
It depends on how you want your thing to fail. If you have distributed power, then you can control them a little bit easier maybe, but you risk having the wires break as you move around, so you have to do a really good job with mechanical stuff. If you have independent power, you don't have to worry as much about the mechanical stuff because it's not going to running wires everywhere, but you're more likely to have your batteries die unexpectedly, so there's more battery management. So you kind of have to pick which frustrating thing you want to deal with.
All right. That's our show tonight. Thank you,
All right,
everybody.
thanks,
Don't forget the
everybody.
code is BT Clock. 10% off Adafruit Store until I turn it off very soon, probably within an hour or so. Thank you, everyone. We'll see everybody next week. Please be good to each other, stay safe, and all those things. Thanks for being with us and supporting this open source hardware company in New York City, manufacturing stuff in the USA. We will see everybody next week. Here comes your moment of Xener.
Thanks, everybody.